Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just it's just Marco here once again, and I am back. As you guys could tell on Easter, I was not feeling well at all, and I am still sick. I have parasites, and it's pretty bad. Pretty bad to say the least. I don't want to talk about it. So anyways, I actually came up with this video idea today, and I was like, what the hell? This would actually be a really fun idea, and it's something that, I could do. I don't have to watch a movie today to review or anything. I can just do this topic. And I think that there's not a lot of reviewers out there who ever admit that they're wrong. Like, I can't even think of one right off the bat. Like, some of my favorite reviewers, even like ones that I still watch, and I'm not going to name their names because it'll seem like I'm taking shots at them. But it just doesn't seem like they ever come out and say, like, oh, I was wrong, or oh, I shouldn't have done that, or oh, I didn't like that movie as much as I did anymore. Like, it seems like every reviewer just makes the reviews and they never really talk about, well, actually, like, I don't know. So I counted in total, as much as I could count, 53 times I think I've been wrong, which is about 3% is an average. So 3% of the time I'm wrong. And I think that's pretty accurate. That's not like counting individual topics, like specific topics in those reviews. This is if I like a movie or don't like a movie, like a TV show, don't like a TV show. I narrowed it down to 32 times, so I have 25 main ones, or I guess it's just 32 times, whatever. So first off, Jeepers Creepers 3. This is one of the first reviews we ever did, and this was back when we were just ourselves on camera. I wasn't playing the hard-ass, serious, critical character that I play in all the other videos, and it just wasn't selling. And I'd be really nice to everything, and I'd just be a little negative here and there, even though I was thinking more negatively. And people, the videos got like 10 views, 5 views. And it was only when I started being more honest and being like, okay, this is a piece of shit, that's when the videos started getting more views. And one of the times was Jeepers Creepers 3. And I've talked about this movie before and the top movies that should have been remade, in terms of, I really do think that the director, writer, I think he was screwed over, even though he was a terrible person, did a terrible thing in real life back in the 90s or 80s. I think that he deserved to do his original script, and I just wanted to be nice to this movie so that he would get to do that movie, because the original deal was for him to do this movie that he never wanted to do, and then he would get to do the fourth one next year. And of course he got screwed over, and they gave the franchise to a bunch of retards, and then they made a movie that was so terrible that I'll never even talk about it. So that they really ruined Jeepers Creepers. And honestly, I don't regret being nice to this movie at all, even though I thought it was going to be really good, and it was just it wasn't terrible. I'm really glad that I was somebody who stuck up for the movie, so that he could possibly get to make the movie he wanted to make. And then Infinity War, Avengers 3, this movie was a piece of shit. I mean, I can't even watch this movie. Like, I can't even, if I go back to watch a Marvel movie, it'll be Iron Man, the first Avengers movie, and that's basically it. Like, I really don't care about rewatching Marvel movies at all. And Infinity War, originally, I thought this movie was a masterpiece, and I was calling it like the best thing since The Godfather or something, and it was really cringe. I think what happened was I was just really hyped up with the crowd, because this is one of the few movies that I have seen opening night, and it is a completely different experience than just watching it at home or just watching it on a Monday morning. You know, when you watch a movie on opening night, it was a packed theater. It was an otherworldly experience. And that experience made me think the movie was great. And to be fair, I still think it is probably my favorite movie theater experience ever, because it was so much fun watching it with a crowd and just thinking, wow, this is such great spectacle. And to be fair, it was great spectacle, but complete trash movie. So even though I was wrong and I think this movie's a piece of shit, I don't regret being nice to it, because I think that experience was worth it. I mean, there'll never be another superhero movie experience like Infinity War or Endgame ever again. And I'm just being honest with that. Like, sorry guys, it's over. It's done. Next up is Poltergeist. This is a movie that, like, wow, I thought this movie was going to be really, really good, because everyone says it's incredible. It's a classic, amazing horror movie. And then I watched it and I was like, oh God, this is boring trash. It's terrible. The whole experience of living in a haunted house is nothing like the experience in this movie. It's terrible that in real life, the making of the movie cursed all the people making it. And so the teenage daughter, she had a domestic abuse boyfriend. She got murdered by him. The little girl in the movie died in real life at a young age. One of the construction workers, he got axed to death in his own home. I mean, the movie was cursed, and for the movie to be this bad is really a complete embarrassment. I mean, if I knew that making Poltergeist was going to end with my demise, untimely demise, I'd say, fuck that shit. I'm gonna go sell out and make Avengers 7 female power. Like, I am not gonna risk my life to make Poltergeist a boring trash movie that was. And next up is The Irishman. This is another movie where the experience in watching it kind of blindsided me and made me think differently about the movie than I do now. And I will say, all these critics and shills, you can see how they are so fake and phony, because they get incentives, they get perks. And, I used to listen to these guys. I'm not going to name their names. I'll just say that they the name rhymes with Moe's Gnome. Yeah, Moe's Gnome. So just think of words that rhyme with Moe's Gnome. Moe's Gnome, Moe's Gnome, Moe's Gnome. They used to talk about, like, going to theaters, getting to meet celebrities, getting to go to these parties and get perks like that, and go to the premiere events. Like, George Lucas was like 5 feet away from me. And so, like, yeah, of course you like the movie, because you like that experience. And you could see that over and over and over again. Whenever they did a movie review, they didn't even talk about the movie for like 3 hours. The first 3 hours, they'd talk about how they got to go to this amazing premiere. They got to get treated like celebrities so that they could be bribed to give these movies good reviews. And it's the opposite experience sometimes too. With The Irishman, it was Thanksgiving and the oven was not working. It had not been working for a year and a half, and the temperature was not getting up to temperature. It was supposed to be like 400 degrees. It would only get to 120 degrees max. And it ruined Thanksgiving. Because we could not cook the turkey. And we could not cook the stuffing. And at the same time, I had a popcorn kernel stuck in between my two front teeth. And it was bothering me, and I could not get it out. It was terrible. It was a horrible experience watching this movie. It's already a horrible experience on holidays because you have to cook, and there's not really much relaxation at all, counter to like what you see with all these. I think the only holiday where you ever really relax is like Halloween and Christmas Day. Every other holiday is just complete awful work all day long, which is weird because you'd think that like with these religious holidays like Easter and things, you'd think that like the whole point would be for you to not work on those days, and so that you'd be appreciating the religious aspects of the holidays. Like even with, like, if you think about the original holidays, like Halloween, the original pagan holidays, those pagans, they didn't do any work on the holidays. Like, they would do, like, rituals and stuff, but, you know, that's not really work. That's just fun. So, like, especially with Easter, like, if you read about Easter, you know, what pagans would do originally to celebrate Easter is just have a big sex orgy. And it's like, you know, I much prefer the pagan Easter than to do the Easter that I just did on Sunday, which was basically like 24 hours of torture. But it was mostly due to being sick, though. But anyways, The Irishman, it was totally ruined because of Thanksgiving, as well as it was not the movie that I thought it was going to be. I thought, you know, this movie is about a hitman. It's about a guy who kills people. It's going to be 3 hours of him killing people. And what happened? It was a 3-hour drama with about 5 minutes of him killing people, if even that. And it was really frustrating and just, one of the worst movie experiences I've ever had. But months later, I knew that I was wrong because I went back and watched the movie, and I thought, wow, this movie's a masterpiece. It's a very good movie. It's one of my top Scorsese movies. I think it's almost even better than Goodfellas, but it was just that experience, and just being like, you know, this was not the movie that it should have been. And I still stick by that too. Like, I still think that the movie that he should have made was blatantly obvious, but he's like 70 years old, so he made like the boomer movie, just like, you know, Steven Spielberg. He shit the bed. You know, The Fabelmans, it was supposed to be like an epic biopic about his life by himself, which just sounded like the ultimate Chad move. You know, like Howard Stern, he did Private Parts. That movie's phenomenal. One of the best comedy movies ever made. But Steven Spielberg, he's in like his 80s, so he couldn't handle that, and he had to make a boomer, drama, soapy, sappy, wet blanket of a movie. about his stupid teenage years, coming of age, Steven Spielberg. But oh no, he's not. It's not the Spielberg. It's the Fablemans. It's like, fuck off, Fablemans. Fuck you. Next up is the Oblong Box. Oh yeah, and I just remembered, I actually just thought of a reviewer who admits that he's wrong, and I kind of look like him a little bit. I look like a bigger version. Like, he looks like a really skinny version of me. And that is the Pitch Meeting guy. And he has actually been doing a series where he goes back and revisits old pitch meetings, and he admits that he was wrong about that. That shouldn't have been in there. So actually, he's one of the good ones. He's probably like one of the only reviewers I would want to collaborate with too. Just because we look so much alike. That'd be pretty funny. The Oblong Box was a movie that I thought would be really good. You have Vincent Price, Christopher Lee. Instead, it was a terrible, awful, boring, bad movie. The only good thing about it was the twist at the end. This movie was piss poor. The next up is 1917. So originally, I had a bunch of criticisms for this movie, and I still stand by every single criticism. But I wasn't looking at the movie as a movie. And for that, I was picking it apart to the point of where I couldn't enjoy it. And I should have just turned it off and enjoyed it, because I've done that before with like shitty superhero movies. And when you turn your brain off and just enjoy 1917 as a movie, it is clearly a masterpiece. And it's one of the best movies ever made. And I actually put it, I think, as my best movie of 2019, because that's how good it was. Like, I was totally wrong. It went from being worst movie or one of the worst movies to one of the best. And next up is the Marco Reviews 5 Movies series that I did in 2020. So in 2020, I tore my abdominal muscles in February 27th. And I was really having a terrible time recovering. Long recovery period. Completely self-healed recovery. And I thought, I need to do reviews, but at the same time, I just cannot do reviews every day. It hurt to talk, it hurt to laugh, it hurt to cough, it hurt to do everything, because it was such a bad tear. And I thought, I have to figure out something to do. And I thought, I could watch 5 movies and then review those 5 movies at the end of the week. And it'd be like a fun thing I could do. I could rank them to, do jokes with that. And I thought, too, like, maybe the series will get more views since, you have 5 different movies. That's 5 different gambling chances in one video, but instead they hardly got any views, and making them was not very fun. And then too, I had to delete one of the videos because I had met somebody who I went to high school with, and the person was supposed to be a YouTuber who would do a collaboration with me. And they said, all they wanted to do was be a YouTuber, and we promoted each other's channels, and I featured this person's channel on the front page of my channel, getting millions of free views for all this time until like this year in the summer, and this person just never bothered to do a collaboration, and so I just thought, you know what? Fuck this shit. Sorry, but I believe in mutual support. I don't believe in, I think that if you give, you should receive too. And that's not like a selfish thing, because I could give and then not care if I receive to plenty of people. But it's the fact that when there's a level of dishonesty and a level of, I don't know deception and bullshitting, that it just pisses me off. And this is one of those times. And the whole series was just a complete disaster, which is really unfortunate because I kind of prefer doing it than doing a movie a day, like, honestly. Next up is Bernie. This is a very strange, creepy movie about a killer who killed an innocent old woman, but she was mean, so it's okay. And he was played by Jack Black, and I thought, this is going to be a really good movie. I'm really excited. It's Jack fucking Black. I think he's one of the best actors ever. I should have put him on the actors I want to work with. That's for sure. That was a big mistake not to put him there. But I really did not like this movie. I thought it was very mean-spirited. I thought it was creepy. I thought it was really, hard to watch, because the whole movie was basically cheering on the murder of this old woman, where this guy, he married her for her money, and then he shot her in the back, but she was mean, so it's okay. So yeah, that's one where I was like, wow, this was not the movie I expected. This was not the movie that I thought it was going to be. I'm really creeped out, and it actually made me kind of sick to my stomach watching the movie, and then learning that apparently the full cast and crew came to this real guy's court hearing. They got him out of prison, and then the killer stayed in the garage of the director of this movie for 10 years before going back to prison. That is just, it is unbelievable that nobody talks about this movie. It's so creepy. It's just imagine if they had done that for you-know-who. And I'm not going to say the names, because saying their names will bring bad juju. But Mr. and Mrs. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Just imagine if they made a movie that painted the victims to look like bad people and say oh, well, they didn't do anything wrong, it was all good. Everyone would have protested that movie. Everyone would have been so upset. But because this woman was not liked in real life, they painted it as oh, it's really good she got killed. Who cares? So next up is The Alienist Season 2. So this was a show that Season 1, I thought it was a complete piece of shit. And it's so funny because it just shows that the people who make these movies and shows, they watch our reviews. Because in Season 2 of the show, they came up with a new character, and his name was Dr. Marco, and he was painted as an evil villain character who had this illegal abortion hospital, and he was a really evil guy, and he would sterilize women. And it was clear that they cast someone probably how they think that I look like in real life, and I don't look like anything like this person. And they did it because they were so mad that I was mean to their season 1. That is just it is one of the funniest things that has ever happened in history. And you could look it up. Let's look it up right now too, because It's really funny. And the character, he is not in the books. They came up with this character all by themselves. And they did it because they were so mad at me for just being honest. Like, I didn't even hate season 1. I thought that it had its moments. Oh god. I almost just thought that they were remaking Thinner, my favorite Stephen King movie, and I got really pissed off for a second. So let's go to the episode. Let's go. Where is he? Yep, there he is, Dr. Marco. And his name is spelled Markoe. And he's portrayed by a guy who's in his, 50s. He doesn't look anything like me. But it's just fucking hilarious that they did that. I'd say that's one of the greatest things that's ever happened in our channel's history. But the irony was that I actually really loved season 2 at first. I thought that the first 4 episodes were really good, and I was really oh wow, this is so much better than season 1. And then unfortunately the show took a turn and it became trash. And it ended on such a terrible note. And it was sad because I thought I was wrong. I thought I was wrong about this show being bad. This is now a good show, and then boom, it was bad again. So next up, this is actually just a video concept. So top 30 most beautiful actresses today video. This was a video that I thought, you know what? I'm sick and tired of these fucking retards complaining on my channel and pretending disliking a video is gonna trigger me or make me upset. Oh no, you didn't like my review, I don't fucking care. That's not the reason that I do reviews. I do reviews to voice my opinion and give criticism. I don't post reviews so that I can get points in the social club. So it was funny because I thought, what could be more nice and pleasant and just universally loved than just making a video talking about oh, these are the top 30 most beautiful actresses. And then boom. And now, to be fair, the person who started this trash, she was not even supposed to be watching the channel. So I actually was in contact with this actress, which let's not even call her, let's just call her a fraud, because she's a fraud just like 99% of them who pretend like they're actresses. So this fraud, I thought she could be pretty good. She was supposed to be a replacement for another fraudulent actress, and I thought, oh, she gave me her number, she's going to be really cool. And so then what she did was she looked up my channel and she watched the video, top 30 beautiful actresses, and she got so triggered by this joke. It wasn't even a serious thing. It was just a light joke about fisting one of the people from the Iron Fist TV show, and it was just a play on words, and it was 10 seconds of the fucking 30-minute video, and this fucking bitch, I would even go so far as to call her a C word. She started lecturing me and saying that I was bad for making a video objectifying women, and that I should change, and that I should change the video, and I'm bad, and wah wah wah. And so I got really pissed off because this bitch, she was trying to tell me what to do with my channel, which nobody can ever tell me what to do with my fucking channel, that's for damn sure. Sure as hell is not gonna be some no-name fraudulent actress who's never done a fucking project worth a damn in their life. And so then I look up and I get to her, and oh wait, no, that didn't happen yet. Okay, so what happened was then I fucking told her off. I got rid of her. And then what she did was she got all of her friends to come onto the channel and dislike the video. So the video has like 10 dislikes because she was so triggered and so upset. She couldn't handle that I made a joke for 10 seconds in a video that she wasn't even supposed to be watching in the first place. So what I did was I went to her channel. She had this little shitty channel where she showed these videos of her in high school, like singing these stupid songs in her auditorium. And I went on I created like 10 different accounts, and I disliked all of her videos. And you could tell that she got upset because then she deleted her YouTube channel, and she's never done a movie, she's never done a show, she's never done jack shit because she's a fucking fraud. And she quit the acting website too, which isn't a surprise because that website's just a bunch of frauds. So, as I said though, it's like this video, I thought, how could this video be hated? Like, this video, it's going to be such a calming video. Like, wow, she's pretty. Wow, she's pretty. Oh no, can't do that because you got to have some feminazi fucking cunt from Florida girl trying to tell me what to do with my fucking channel. Okay, and the next up is The Devil All the Time. This was a Netflix movie, and I admit I was wrong. I thought that this movie originally was really, really good, and and I look back at that, and I just kind of want to punch myself in the face. Next up is Fargo Season 4. This was one that was actually really frustrating because I was really excited for it. Everyone was laughing at Chris Rock. And I was one of the only people defending the show and saying, I'm really excited to watch him. I can't wait to support him in this Season 4. And then I watched it and I thought, this is one of the worst fucking things I've ever seen. And it's sad because the show had a ton of potential. They had this really cool Mormon character, and he was a marshal, and he was basically like a Mormon Batman. And he was one of the coolest characters I've ever seen. He had this like cowboy hat. He was just fucking awesome. And but the show sucked, and I was completely wrong. It turned out to be trash. And then everyone got mad. They called Safi a Graham Wizard in the KKK because she didn't like Season 4. And it was funny too because the same idiots who complained that we didn't like Season 4, they would go on other channels where like a black people would be talking about the season, like, because the show was about blacks versus Italians in the 50s in Kansas, and so obviously you had all these people criticizing me, calling me racist because I didn't like a show that happened to have people who aren't white in it, for the most part. I mean, there were still white characters, and I called them trash too, but they didn't care about that. And actually, it had an actor in it, and he was fat, and he had a mustache, and he was Italian stereotype to the T, and I called him Mario because he was the perfect. If you ever made a live-action Mario movie, he would be the perfect choice. But anyway, I just thought it was funny that, those same people, they also bullied and harassed and criticized black people who didn't like Fargo Season 4 as well. Which, says a lot because it shows it has nothing to do with race issue or anything. It has to do with people being retards like usual. Next up is Bliss. This was a movie that I thought it was going to be a really bad movie. It was going to be a really stupid, funny, because it's bad movie with Owen Wilson, Salma Hayek, But I actually really liked this movie. I thought it was a decent science fiction movie. You know, I'm not really a fan of the science fiction genre, but this is one of the only times where I can say, like, yeah, I was really interested in this science fiction story. And I think it's sad because the director, it seems like he has a hard time making movies. And it's sad that this movie didn't get more support because I thought it was a decent movie. Next up is Private Chat. Now, this movie fucking pisses me off. Okay, so you have Julia Fox, which nowadays she's only known for sleeping with Kanye, which is probably the worst decision she ever made in her entire shitty career. This movie was another terrible decision. It sounded like it was going to be a really good movie. It was all about this guy, and he was a simp, and he was a gambler, and he would pay for this cam girl to have private sessions with him all the time, and, you know, she's like a dominatrix, and then he sees this girl in real life, and she looks exactly like the girl that he's chatting with in the video chat, and I thought, wow, this is going to be a really intense, erotic thriller. It's going to be like Vertigo meets Basic Instinct. And instead, it was like a horrible, piss-poor version of Vertigo. It had basically no nudity at all. It had no erotic anything in the whole fucking movie except for like the ending where she's putting cigarettes out on her boobs, which is really fucking gross, and then she's putting the cigarettes out on his tongue, and it's like, God, what were they thinking? Like, they got Julia Fox. Up to that point, the only thing that she was known for was being naked, kind of, in Uncut Gems. And so you're expecting for her to do that in Private Chat. But she doesn't even do that at all. Like, she just has clothes on. It's like, what the fuck is this? That's not what I paid for. And I paid for it, too. I paid $16 to rent this movie on YouTube. And it was I was so let down. I was so disappointed. There was nothing in it worthwhile, if you know what I mean. I don't even know why it was rated R. I mean, why the fuck was this movie rated R? So I was wrong. I thought this movie was going to be a masterpiece. And to be fair, I would genuinely like to rip off this movie and make a better one, because it'd be pretty easy to be honest. I mean, the whole mystery, too, it wasn't even like a back and forth of like, oh, is she the girl? Is she not the girl? It was just very, very simply, oh yeah, that's the cam girl. And it's like, wow, that's really interesting. Not. Next up is Zack Snyder's Justice League cut. This is actually a really sad instance for me of being wrong, because when I heard about, you know, how they got rid of him in the middle of him making Justice League, I thought, that's terrible. They should not have done that. You know, I mean, his movies are already fucking terrible enough. Like, why do you have to make him a martyr? Why do you have to get him off this movie and let him create this cult of idiots who just think everything he does is perfect and amazing? Like, that's what they did. And because of the Warner Brothers' stupidity, they created the worst fan movement in history, which is the Snyder Cut movement. And they created two of the worst superhero movies in history. And so what I did was I said, you know what? I'm not going to watch Justice League, Joss Whedon's version. I'm going to wait until the real version comes out. And if it doesn't come out, I'm never going to watch Justice League. And then the movie came out, and it is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It's one of the worst superhero movies I've ever seen. It was miserable watching it twice. It was like hell. If I'm genuinely serious here. If you were to ask me my interpretation of hell, it would be Zack Snyder's Justice League cut. And then what was funny was I went back and I watched Joss Whedon's Justice League, and it was 1,000,000 times better, even though it was still like a shitty movie. And I thought, Joss Whedon, he really did do the best job he could in improving on this pile of shit that Zack Snyder wanted to do. And so that's what's funny, though, is that all Warner Brothers had to do was let him finish his shit movie and then fire him and just be like, wow, that was a failure. Like, all they had to do was let him fail. And instead, they kicked him out and they made him a martyr forever. So good job, fucking idiots at Warner Brothers. Next up is Super Dumbasses. I think you guys are well aware of that movie. So, this movie, I was wrong because I thought all I had to do was take out my iPhone, point it at these people that I hung out with in 2020 and 2021, and then just point and shoot. Just point and shoot. Like, I thought it'd be really cool to make like a comedy, like a hangout comedy, but for real, with real people, real friends, and just, let things play out and they'll be really funny. But instead, it was a horrible experience for various reasons, and the whole time I was like, you know what, I should not have done this. And there were several highlight moments where I would point to and say, wow, that was a really bad idea to do this movie, because that was awful. So, unfortunately, like, I it's really terrible. Like, I would love to just do movies like this where, you could, like, hang out with people, like, go on a road trip. And so that was the most disappointing aspect, was that we were discussing going on, like, a road trip, and then by the end of filming, they just didn't want to do anything because they're fucking retarded. So, that whole plan just was totally, like, let down. And I just thought, this was a big disappointment of a movie. And looking back on it, it's a very inconsistent film, because what I did was I just cut together the footage I had, and I wasn't able to craft any narrative because we weren't able to get to that point because we didn't have any script. So it was very disappointing. Next up is Goosebumps. It Came from Beneath the Sink. This is a book where, I thought, this is the stupid book where it's all about an evil sponge. And then I read it and I was like, wow, this book is a masterpiece. It is, if you want to know the experience of owning a cursed object, this book gives you the real experience. And I'll just leave it at that. So next up is Queen Pins. This is a movie that I thought, the title is terrible. It's inflammatory. It's very clearly feminized, feminazi propaganda. And then I watched the movie and I thought, this is actually a good comedy movie. There's only a couple of cringeworthy agenda moments. But other than that, I would watch it again. Next up is Robot Wars. This is a full moon movie that I picked out. I was really excited about it. I thought, how could you get this movie wrong? You have robots fighting each other in the desert. You got a giant robot scorpion versus a giant robot spider. How could you mess that up? Well, you could make Robot Wars. That's how you could mess it up. And 99% of the movie is just this boring drama sci-fi movie about this hero who's down on his luck. He likes a girl. She doesn't really like him yet. This was boring. It was a terrible experience watching it. Safi and I both just, it was hard to get through it. The only good thing about it was the Wendy's that I was eating while I was watching it. Had a grilled chicken sandwich, and I had a cheesy baked potato. Oh, that was delicious. Next up is Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, the producer's cut. This is a movie that, I always hated the original version as a kid, and I still hate it too. Well, I don't really hate it anymore, actually. It's just okay. And I always heard about how the producer's cut, it's the same movie. It's the same movie as the original cut. There's no difference. Well, then I watched the producer's cut, and I think that it is extremely underrated. It is a really good Halloween movie, and I was totally wrong. And I thought, this is actually really good. Like, it is so much different than the original version. It is the good version of Zack Snyder's Justice League type thing. And so that was a surprising one. Next up is 13 Fanboy. This is a movie that, I really try to be nice as possible to smaller movies that were made with no budget. This was one especially where I wanted to be nice because the person who made the movie, she was in Friday the 13th, part 3 or 5, I can't remember, and she's really, really nice. She has this whole Facebook group about horror movies, and it's probably one of the best Facebook groups in history. I've never had a bad experience in the group, which is rare because usually Facebook groups, the experience of being in them always is the same thing. You're really excited about being in the group. You have a couple of months of a lot of fun, and then something terrible happens in the group, and it just completely ruins the whole experience. Even a year, Facebook groups can be pretty fun, but then something always happens. But for somehow, 13 Fanboy, the Facebook group, nothing bad has ever happened. I think it's a great group. The thing is, this movie was a really good concept. So you have a really crazy fan, and they love the Friday the 13th movies, and they stalk and kill people who were in the Friday the 13th movies. That sounds like a really, really good concept for a horror movie. Kind of like Wes Craven's New Nightmare, but good. That was another terrible movie. Never seen me be nice to that movie. Piece of shit. 13 Fanboy, it was not very good. Like, I don't even think that Safi would remember this movie. She didn't. We talked about it, and I even played her review, and she did not remember it at all. And it was not very good. But we both acted like it was good, and I just think we appreciated the effort, and we appreciated that they tried. But it was a fail. It was a light fail. It's like when you create an invention and it fails, and you're like, whatever, next time will be better. Like Ed Wood would say, Edward D. Wood Jr., which I will never be Ed Wood. Sorry. You can forget that. don't ever call me Ed Wood. If you call me Ed Wood, you get slapped like fucking Chris Rock in this bitch. So next up is Terrifier. This was one that really pissed me off because for Halloween in 2021, I did Pink Flamingos, and it's probably one of the funniest, most fun commentary experiences I've ever done. And I had so much fun. I loved it. I didn't like the movie, but I loved the experience. And I thought, I need to do one with Safi for Halloween. Maybe Terrifier would be good because everyone says Terrifier is a really good horror movie. And I thought, it looks good. The character looks cool. He looks creepy. And it's got nudity. It's got blood. That's perfect horror movie for me. For anyone. But then I watched it and I thought, this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It was boring. It was hard to get through. The characters were paper thin. It was so simplistic. It was basically like a piece of paper made into a movie. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. It was painfully bad. I was crying watching this movie. I was crying watching Don't Make Waves this past week as well. Not even because I was sick, but because the movie was so bad. Terrifier was another example, but the difference is that I knew that Don't Make Waves was going to be trash, even though Sharon looked really good in the movie. She looked really good as Malibu Barbie. Next up is Home Alone 5 Holiday Heist. This is a movie that I really wish people would give a chance, because when they talk about this movie, it's almost like the black sheep of the Home Alone family. Like, everyone knows that the remake is the worst movie in the series. But for some reason, everyone really shit-talks this movie because it was straight to video. And I really think that this movie was good. I think it's a funny movie. I think it's a good kids movie. It's not a great movie, but I think it is actually a pretty good Home Alone movie. They had a bunch of elements in it that were really creative. They had like a ghost in the movie, or like a quote-unquote ghost, like a fake ghost. They had this really creative thing where there's this lonely video gamer guy, and he helps out the main kid, and it's really cool because he accomplishes something, and he's like the snow shovel man from part 1, and I thought that's really creative. And then the villains, you got Malcolm McDowell, you got this really funny guy and this funny girl. And you have really creative and good traps, too. Like, they had this really creative trap where all it is that one of them has to eat the gingerbread cookies on the counter. And he just made, like, really gross gingerbread cookies. And that was the trap. And I thought, this is really genius. Like, it's not like lethal and awful like in part 1 and 2, where he's killing these characters over and over. It's like a really realistic prank. In fact, all the traps were really realistic. Next up was Duel in the Sun. This is a very regretful experience. I thought this movie was really good. I really enjoyed the first part where it was a setup. And it's all about this girl, and she moves to this ranch, and you have a good cowboy and a bad cowboy. And the question is, who is she going to fall in love with? And it seemed like it was going to be a really good movie. And then the rest of the movie happened, and it was a total disaster of a movie. But I liked a lot of elements in it. I loved ideas, and it's really hard, like, because then I learned about what happened in real life. And I learned about why this movie was made, and I learned about how, like, the reason why the movie is so bad is because that creepy fatso producer, he took the script and he was just writing new pages himself every day on set so that he could make that girl look good, so that he could groom her into leaving her husband. And then, of course, he passed away years later. And so it's just, I don't like even talking about this movie, because it's almost like it's a dirty movie because of what it's doing behind the scenes. It's like Eye of the Devil. It's like on that level. So, but it's still, it's not as good as I thought it was originally, but it's still it's okay. Next up is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. This is a movie I thought was going to be terrible, and I was really excited to see it in theaters, but it went straight to Netflix instead. And I was totally wrong about the movie being terrible. It had a really rough first 25 minutes where you thought that the characters were going to be these SJWs that nobody likes. But then it turned out that that was the whole point. And that, Leatherface in this movie, he's basically the hero of the movie. These people are coming in to steal his home, to steal his town that he lives in, and he fucks their shit up, and he gets them good. And I was cheering for him the whole movie. It's one of my favorite movie experiences I've ever had. It was such a invigorating experience watching Leatherface in his prime. Even it's so shocking. Like, Leatherface in this movie is more badass than Leatherface in any of the other movies. Like, he's 70 years old, he's got knee problems, but he's just knocking people out like it's nobody's business. He basically kills everyone in the entire fucking movie except for one person at the very end. Like, it's so good. It's such a great horror movie. And I'm so glad that I was wrong. Next up is My Fair Lady. This is a movie that, it's a lot like 1917, where, I admit, it was very painful. It's 3 hours. It has an intermission because it's so long, and it really feels like 3 hours. And if you just watch the movie and enjoy the movie, it's a really good movie. And it's one of the best musicals ever. But I stick to all the criticisms that I said. Like, I was not impressed with the wardrobe. I did not like certain story elements, like the ending and everything. But I love the movie. I'd watch it again right now. Next up is Better Call Saul Season 6, a.k.a. Better Simp Kim Season 6. So this season, I thought, even though they're rushing this show to an end, it should go to at least like 8 seasons, maybe 9 seasons, if I'm being generous, overly generous, I would say. But instead, they rushed it to an end because they're the, we can't overstay my welcome people. And so what happened was, I thought, even though they're rushing it to an end, maybe they have that last bag of tricks that they were saving until, the grand finale, it's like, I'll give you an example. I did the stand-up comedy routine, which I talked about in my memoir, and I saved certain jokes for the end, because I knew that, like, if jokes at the beginning didn't work, if they didn't land, I still have these certain jokes that I can rely on, that I know are funny, and I know that people laugh at them, and I use them, and what happened was actually pretty cool, because 10 minutes after I finished the half-page script, I just improv'd for like 30 minutes, and it was really good, it was really positive, and I lost the voting because the teacher was mad at me for calling the other group a name. Well, it wasn't the other group, it was the other character, because we were playing characters, and I thought, if my character was doing a stand-up comedy routine about that character, he would obviously call him a name at some point. He would not just do jokes, and because that would be me being me. I was being a character, but the teacher got mad, and so he didn't give me a vote, and then there were 4 people absent, and so I lost, and I did not advance, even though I should have. And that is for damn sure. But anyway, what was I talking about? Better Call Saul, which I don't want to talk about anymore. So I thought they had that last bag of tricks, and I was really excited. Maybe the Breaking Bad crossover will be epic. Maybe his finale will be epic, even though they're rushing it to an end for no reason. But instead, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, ever. And to be fair, it's another instance where I think behind-the-scenes stuff ruined the show. The guy who made Breaking Bad, we all know his name, Gilligan's Island. He had some sort of weird midlife crisis, change of heart, where he suddenly hates Walter White, his main character, who, if you didn't have Walter White, Breaking Bad never would have happened, and you never would have had a successful show or even a career to shit about. He doesn't like Walter White anymore, and he's mad that people did not like Skyler. And so he rewrote and completely redesigned season 6 to fix these complaints that he has. So he made it to where the main character, everyone hates him, and he's crap, and he's terrible, even though he's the most likable character on the whole show. Jimmy McGill, he's so likable, he's an everyman, he's completely like a hero. He is a heroic character for everything that he did in the first, I would even say 4 seasons. Getting Huel out of prison possibly in season 4, that was a heroic, applaudable thing that he did. But they made everyone hate him. And then to address the Skyler complaint, they took the female character in the show and they elevated her above all criticism, and they just made it to where she's right about everything. She can do anything she wants and not get in trouble. And it's the absolute worst. Like, I wish I could see the scripts for the original season 6, because I bet it was really good. And I bet they did have a last bag of tricks. In fact, I would say that, Vince Gilligan, he really did that other guy, he did a terrible thing to him, because this was his show. It wasn't Vince Gilligan's show. And I really don't like that he did that. I gotta be honest, like, Better Call Saul is like one of the most infuriating things in this channel's history. It's so shameful to me. It's like, out of all the things, I would say the Halloween series, what they did with that, and then what they did with Star Wars, and what they did with Better Call Saul, that would be the top three. Let's just say, like, if I had, like, some sort of ultimate power, I would force these people to delete season 6 and redo it and make it what it should have been. Or at least release the scripts to what originally should have been. Because then I could be like, oh wow, look, that's what the show should have been. Not this piece of shit that you ended up making. Next up is White Mama. This is a movie that I actually snubbed twice. So I left it out of the rankings for some reason, even though I really liked it. I had such a fun time watching it. It's one of the Bette Davis movies, and I chose it because I thought it was a really funny title. I thought it seemed like a really hilarious concept. You have Bette Davis, and she takes in this teenage black kid, and he's like a troublemaker, and she shapes him up a little bit, but it was a really, really good movie, and it ended up being like Rocky, where he was like Creed before Creed existed, and then she was like Rocky in the Creed movie, and I would actually say it should have been a series. It had the potential to be a really good series, and I was wrong. I thought it was just going to be a joke movie. Next up is Tom Cruise Day. So the commentaries, they're really hard to do. It's hard to pick a movie that will be a good commentary movie. It's hard to pick punishment foods that will be good punishment foods, because Safi will refuse to do some, and then you don't know how Safi's going to react. I don't know how I'm going to react. So it just makes doing commentaries really kind of terrible sometimes. And I thought, Tom Cruise, he's having a milestone birthday. Let's do a Tom Cruise Day. Force Safi to watch Tom Cruise movies. And it was so awful. I almost get PTSD flashbacks thinking about it. We ate this cereal, Cap'n Crunch, Oops, All Berries cereal. And by the way, I am never eating cereal again, because Oops, All Berries gave us food poisoning. It was awful. And then, of course, Lucky Charms gave me parasites and food poisoning. That is awful. So I will never eat cereal again. I'm sick and tired of getting sick from eating food. And, say what you will about eating protein bars, but I never got sick at all from eating protein bars, ever. Ever. Even though you have all these idiots, and they say, protein is bad for your liver. Don't take protein because it's bad for you. It's like, I ate protein bars for years, never had a single problem. But then I decided I'm going to switch to cereal, and I ate Lucky Charms, and it gave me parasites. I mean, how is that even possible, guys? How the fuck is it possible to get a parasite infestation? Parasites who can swim around your entire body, like a fucking Twilight Zone episode. How is it possible to get that from cereal? Like, that had to have been purposeful. Somebody had to have put that in that cereal to do some harm to somebody. And so that's pretty bad, I gotta say. But anyways, we got sick and I had to watch Top Gun a second time. I'll never watch that movie again. I hate it with a passion. And then we had to watch Magnolia. And I thought that I liked that movie, but I do not anymore. I'll never watch it again. And it was a miserable experience. And oh, it was so terrible. And we were so excited because we were going to have like a nice lunch and then a nice dinner. But no. Had to fuck all that up too. And I won't even mention the little demons sitting across the street in their trucks talking about doing you-know-what to the house. At the same time that we're having food poisoning, it's raining, and we're watching Tom Cruise movies. I mean, talk about torture. And then another bad thing was that I thought it would be really funny to do a Scientology prayer on camera. And I'm not kidding you when I say that it was some evil energy that came from doing that Scientology prayer. And so I would never, ever, ever do that again. Next up is Chucky Season 2. This is similar to The Alienist, where I really loved Season 2 of Chucky at first. And I thought that the first, 4 episodes were really good. And then the show got woke, went broke, and it became trash. Just like the first season. And next up is La La Land. You know, this is a movie that I never really had much interest in watching. I thought it sounded stupid and pretentious and cringe. And it was. It was very cringe. You know, it was like... It was the ultimate fraud's dream. Like, when I see all these frauds who pretend like they're actors online, this is their ultimate fantasy of, like, what being an actor is like in Hollywood. This is, like, just so pretentious and so cringeworthy. It is on another level of cringeworthy. It is in its own cringeworthy land called La La Land. But the thing is that regardless, it's a really good movie. It's very uplifting. It's very cheerful. The songs are actually decent. And I will watch it again. Even though it is a bad movie. I mean, it is objectively a bad movie. He took elements from his other 2 movies, and he just copied and pasted them into La La Land. And then he made Babylon, and he copied and pasted moments from these movies in Babylon. And, I don't like people who do that. Lastly, this is the movie that made me think of doing this video idea. And that is, of course, Dungeons and Dragons. This is probably the worst time that I've ever been wrong about a movie. This was a really, really good movie. I was shocked. I was so shocked that my review for this movie is one of the worst reviews that I've ever done on the channel, and it's because I was so prepared to hate the movie and to call it a piece of shit that I was so shocked that it was a really good movie. It was basically like Guardians of the Galaxy in medieval times, and there were no agendas. There were no forced messaging, anything. It was just a really good movie, and I would watch it again. I think it's going to be one of the best movies of the year, and I think it's highly underrated now because now everyone's just talking about Mario, and I wish that, maybe at least some of the people who like Mario would go over and watch Dungeons and Dragons and see what they missed opening day. So anyways, that is going to be it. Safi is going to have her own video, which I'm sure is going to be pretty disastrous. Because the thing is that Safi is nice to everything, basically, almost. Even if something disappoints her, unless it's really bad, like Better Call Saul, she's not going to really fully admit to it. She's just going to kind of be like, I guess you're right, I guess you're right, I guess you're right. Like, some of these movies, she'll come in here and say, oh, that was pretty good. She said Children of the Corn 5 was pretty good. And then I just completely ripped the movie to shreds. And she was like, oh, I guess you're right, now that I think about it. ... So, anyways, and I probably will do top times I've been right in the future, because I bet there's a lot more times. Oh, there is. It's 97% of the time, apparently, according to statistics. So please like this video, comment, tell me which of these times I was most wrong. I kind of think maybe the Irishman or 1917. And to be fair too, I don't like reviewing movies like right after I watch them. Like, even though I have to, it kind of does the movies a disservice, because I like to think about the movies. I like to let them sit with me, and so that I can see like what I will think about them in a week or a month or a year. And that's why I really like rankings, is because you're ranking the movies and talking about them after they've sat for a while in your stomach. And so anyways, that'll be it. And tomorrow will be a Renfield review, hopefully. I hope that movie's pretty good, because it doesn't sound very good. I mean, I was expecting it to be a serious movie. I wasn't really wanting to watch a comedy. But of course, I guess they don't want to take Nicolas Cage seriously for some reason. Like, he did that Pig movie, and that was a really good movie. It took some getting used to, but it was a great, serious Nicolas Cage movie. But it seems like everything else is just like a joke. It's like, oh, it's really funny because he's making funny faces and he's really over the top. And I don't want to see that. Like, I want to see like a serious movie like Pig. I don't want to see a movie like what was that called? Willy's Wonderland or whatever. Like, I don't want to watch that. So anyways, goodbye everybody. See you soon.